Today in Cloud Gaming News, we're going to be going over some headlines regarding Stadia, Xbox Cloud Gaming, but we're going to begin with one about Amazon Luna. Recently, the boss of Amazon Game Studios, Mike Frazzini, has stepped down from the development division he helped create. Now, this is pretty interesting news because it doesn't directly correlate with Amazon Luna, but it is their game studios, so I did think it was worth bringing up here. Amazon Game Studios' track record is quite interesting. They've been extremely hit or miss. A game like The Crucible got cancelled just 5 months after its launch. But then you have the massive success that was Lost Ark that they just published recently. And in the middle ground, you have New World, which had a very successful launch, but is really struggling to keep its player base at this point in time. But regardless of how those games performed, this isn't the first time Mike Frazzini's name's been on Bloomberg.com. Last year, there was an entire article talking about how Amazon Game Studios was struggling to find a hit. A lot of it was blaming the leadership at the company, and Mike Frazzini's name ended up coming up quite a bit there. So depending on how you see it, this might actually turn out to be a good thing depending on who ends up replacing him. Regardless, it's very interesting news to keep an eye out on because I'm curious to see who's going to replace him, more so than that, what their follow-up to Lost Ark is going to be. And more importantly for us cloud gamers, when we can actually expect them to bring their Amazon Game Studios games over to Luna. But now let's move over to that Stadia bit of news that we're going to talk about today, and it comes in the form of an APK update. Now there isn't anything too major here, but Kyle Bradshaw from 9to5 Google did point out that there was an interesting change in a line of text. It changed from subscribe to Stadia Pro for free games, exclusive discounts, and special features to subscribe to Stadia Pro for 50+ games, exclusive discounts, and special features. This does seem to emphasize that Stadia Pro's library is going to be at a consistent 50+ games from here on out, and I don't think they plan on lowering that. Many of us in the Stadia community have been predicting that Google was going to turn Stadia Pro to more of a direct competitor with Game Pass, and this definitely seems to be the case. And if you ask me, that's a complete win in my books, even more so with the way that Stadia Pro works, that you get to keep the game as long as you're a subscriber and can even let it lapse and then subscribe at some later point and still have access to the games you claimed. I think it's a seriously good move by Google, and it should definitely start to get more attention. In fact, I'm already starting to see it online that some people are noting just how good the games are getting on Stadia Pro every month, especially when compared to the likes of Xbox games with Gold or PlayStation Plus. And let's not forget that as of right now, Stadia remains the only platform where you can have a subscription-like service such as Stadia Pro and also outright buy your games and play them on the cloud. Options are extremely important, and one thing I will credit Google here is that they're making sure they give those choices to the consumer based on how they want to spend their money. It's the correct move to make, and I really hope we start to see even better and better Stadia Pro games launch as this is starting to pick up. But now it's time we move on to the last cloud gaming news story of the day, this time surrounding Xbox game streaming, and that's because they may have paid around $5 to $10 million to get Guardians of the Galaxy on Game Pass. This is coming from David Gibson, who's a senior analyst at MST Financial. Now, what makes this interesting is that it is quite a significant amount of money. To be very clear though, they did pay to put it on Game Pass. I see quite a few people drawing comparisons about the cost of bringing Resident Evil Village and 7 over to Stadia, but the truth is that this is kind of a different deal. After all, this time the game was already available on the Xbox Home Family console, and this was more about making sure that every Game Pass subscriber can play it. That means this $5 to $10 million was more about making sure that they were still getting paid for the loss of active sales they would be getting for putting their game on there, on top of the royalties for time played on Game Pass. I do think it's also important to point out that Guardians of the Galaxy was confirmed not to be that big of a hit for Square Enix, so it could very well be that the $5 to $10 million was actually a better deal for Microsoft than you would expect. Still a ton of money regardless, don't get me wrong, but it is interesting to see that perspective. And while I did just say it wasn't an apples to apples comparison with the Stadia Capcom deal, it certainly gives you a new perspective on the amount Stadia paid. Games are pricey, that's for sure. Either way, let me know whether or not you think it's a good deal for Microsoft to be paying $5 to $10 million for a game like this, or if you think that money would be better spent elsewhere. I'm kind of curious to know what your ideas are. But with that, we wrap up this Cloud Gaming News Day. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful at all, be sure to hit that like button as it really does help the channel out. And if you're wanting more content like this, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell as well. As always, this has been the Virtual Cloud, giving you the latest and greatest on everything cloud gaming related. And until next time, I'll catch you in the clouds.